Hi everybody, welcome to the Girls on Track Motorsport UK webinar. My name is Nicole Sutherland and I'll be leading today's session alongside Rosa, who is the Motorsport UK Discover Your Drive Manager, and Dan Parker, who is the Head of Karting for Motorsport UK. So just to let everybody know before we kind of crack on with the session that this is recorded, so anything that's said will be recorded, and then you can access it after the session, no problem. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. We'll try and get through as many as we can throughout the session and towards the end. So anything you have to kind of ask or to add about yourself and your own journeys through karting, then feel free to pop them in there. So just to introduce myself a little bit more and tell you about kind of why I'm talking to you today. So my name's Nicole Sutherland. I'm 19 and I'm a presenter for the Viritools British Kart Championships. So I started my journey in karting as a driver. I started racing competitively when I was 11. I raced at club level at my local circuits, which were Mansell and Clay Pigeon. Moved my way through club level and then competed in the Viritools British Kart Championships for 4 years in the road tax category. I stopped racing competitively last year, about this time last year, and have gone kind of over to the other side of the fence as a presenter and a commentator. So that's a little bit about me. I really enjoy kind of seeing other females now come through the sport at all levels. It's not just about racing. There's all kinds of things involved in karting, everything from being a mechanic, a marshal, being an organizer, working for Motorsport UK. I think there's lots of different pathways for people, and I think it's a really fantastic sport to be in and to work in. So I'll just pass over to Dan Parker to introduce kind of the karting pathway a little bit. If you wanted to take over for a minute.
Yeah, thanks, Nicole, and welcome to everybody on the call. Great to have everybody here, and great to be here as well. I suppose a bit like Nicole, I'll just give a bit of background about myself. So way back in the midst of time, long time ago, I started my sort of career and sort of journey in karting just as somebody that went to an outdoor track, like an arrive and drive track. Went along there because I used to marshal at Silverstone, because you could marshal then when you were a little bit younger. And they said to me, "Oh, do you want to stay on and do some marshalling afterwards? And then you can have free goes on the karts." So I was like, "Oh, yes, please." So I did that, and then sort of worked my way up through the sort of company as it was then, and watched the company grow and the sport grow, and worked my way all the way up to actually running the venue and running the kart club. So that gave me a really good understanding of the sport. And then I went off and got like a proper job for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years. But karting's really like addictive, and I still carried on, and I was still racing competitively. I was racing in the road tax class, and also doing quite a lot of endurance racing at the time. Then I ended up working for a kart manufacturer for a number of years, and then after that I went and worked in the Middle East, and set sort of karting up over there, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and places like that. And then once that sort of project had finished, the job came over from Motorsport UK, and I don't know, it must have been sort of my arm got twisted to put my name forward for it, and I managed to get the job, and I've been there for 5 years now. And certainly karting's like very passion for me. I think it's a fantastic way into the sport, as Nicole said, either for competitors, if you're driving, if you want to be an official, or even, like as Nicole said, into media. There's no end of different routes and avenues into the sport. But one of the things that I think Motorsport UK acknowledge, and certainly from my job role, is about making the sport more accessible. And that's kind of caveated, if you like, with the fact that there's a lot of choice out there. And one of the things that I did with the team was to try and create like a a clear pathway for people when they get started, how to get into the sport, what our recommended sort of entry points are, and some sensible steps through the sport to ensure that you enjoy your sport, and that you obviously keep it fair and safe for everybody as well while you're out there. So we've pulled together, Rosa's kindly pulled together a slide which will just show everybody sort of an overview of the karting pathway and how it's developed over the last couple of years. The idea of today is to just make sure that everybody's sort of clear on what our recommended, I guess, routes into the sport are, what our recommended pathway looks like. But we do acknowledge that there are different pathways. So some of you may have seen the I guess the kind of guidance and the rules for the Girls on Track Facebook page and social media pages just been adjusted very slightly, just because there's quite a lot of other championships that are around that are, do exactly the same thing, offer them, but some of them don't have some of the benefits that we feel that our events bring. But this isn't like to have a hard sell to anyone. It's just literally this is the recommended route that we recommend, and that back on the screen. Thanks, Rosa. So yeah, hopefully some of you recognise some of these different championships and different pathways that we've got. And there's a little table here which we'll share with everybody afterwards as well, which just give you an idea of the championships and what they are. So the first step on that route is like indoor karting. So Nicole, I'm pretty sure you probably would have started, or first ever time in a kart might be at an indoor or an outdoor track where you just rented the kart.
Funnily enough, I had a not your typical first experience in a kart. I wouldn't recommend my experience because mine was just in a car park.
Yes.
But that is not, kind of where you should start. The indoor stuff, though, I think had I had an indoor track where I live, would have definitely been the route to go. I kind of live in the middle of nowhere and there's nothing really around me. But now, if I lived by a team sport location, that would definitely be where I'd be, putting my foot in the door and having a go for the first time.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good example actually of one of the things one of the reasons it's important that there is this pathway because we get a lot of people who contact us maybe through social media or phone calls that we get about, well, how do I get started? Because they see quite a lot of exposure of karting now on TV or on live stream, and they people want to get into it. So it can be a team sport, but we recognise team sport. I think they've got 40 different tracks now around the UK. There's also the loads and loads of different indoor tracks. So really what you should look for is just make sure they're NKA approved, which is basically they make sure that the tracks all run safely and that they're all run to a set standard, if you like, which is why we partner with Team Sport to do Discover Your Drive and to do the British Indoor Kart Championships, just so we've got like a consistent delivery. But there's loads of different indoor kart tracks all around the country. For sure, that's like the best place to start, because you can go along, you can try karting. It's probably about 25, 30 quid or something, depending on where you live. They provide everything for you, and you can you can stay at that level, race in their leagues. I'd recommend doing that for at least 6 months before you even consider doing anything else. And then obviously you can move into the British Indoor Kart Championship, which is, I think, it's like the biggest indoor or the biggest motorsport participation competition in the world. We have like nearly 10,000 entries now for that event. It's super competitive. You can race in it from when you're 8 years old right up to your not like 50s, 60s. People are still racing in that category indoor. So it's super competitive, really accessible. And yeah, for us, that's the best place to start. And once you've mastered the indoor karting, which is definitely like a different kind of driving style, when you go outside and you start racing on tarmac, you just can't believe how much grip there is. It's like, God, this is just so easy because there's like loads of grip, and because you've been driving indoors, you'll actually be a better driver outdoors to start with. So once you've done some indoor karting, as I say, it doesn't have to be BIKC or Discover Your Drive, but it could be NKA approved indoor tracks or outdoor tracks like Daytona, Butmore Park. Most of the big circuits have got a commercial operation where you can just turn up and drive. The money goes up a little bit, it costs a little bit more to go racing outdoors, but exactly the same thing. They'll provide you with everything: suits, helmets, rib protectors, everything you need to just go karting outdoors. And then after that, we've sort of partnered here with, you can see, hopefully, some people on the call will recognize some of these names. So we've got Club 100. They operate a great operation all over the country, racing at some of the best tracks using Rotax karts. And then you've got Global Karting League, which is Rob Smedley, Formula One engineer. That's his company, and they use electric karts, and they have like Bambino, so that's 6 years, then Cadet 8 years, and then they've got like junior options for when you're a little bit older. And also we've also got DRS as well, which joined the pathway this year in that area, where you can just turn up and you can drive like a little Micromax kart, same as sort of Club 100. And again, everything's provided for you. Again, the price goes up a little bit for that kind of racing, but you are driving like a racing engine. The karts are slightly different, but they're really, really good. And certainly in terms of numbers, we're already seeing some people coming through the indoor pathway into Club 100 and then racing in club racing and the British Kart Championship. So in terms of those three operators, there's normally something somewhere in the country that they're operating. But again, just go and for me, the recommendation is just go to your local outdoor track that offers rental karts or hire karts, and you can go and have a good go out in those, doing a arrive and drive or league format. So really, really accessible and dead easy to do as well. So and on all of these, BIKC and the Club 100, Global Karting League and DRS, you just need a free digital license, and that's like your first racing license. So quite a lot of the arrive and drive stuff you don't need a license for, but if you start racing in these kind of championships or recognized championships, then you need to just get yourself a free clubman license, which you just get on your RS clubman license, which comes on your phone, and also one for parents or guardians as well, because they need a license too. But very simple to download, and you can just get one of those. But if you're not racing in one of those, you can just rock up at your local outdoor track and basically get started. Have you ever had an experience with any of those karts, Nicole?
I've never driven one actually, but I have been to a couple of Club 100 events. I think what's great about that series as well is earlier on in the year, before their kind of race series begins, they do training days where you get to spend some one-on-one time with their coaches and learn some tracks, learn the karts, but it gives you a really good opportunity kind of just to decide whether or not you're enjoying the outdoor stuff before you maybe commit to getting a license and doing that kind of thing. I think that's great. I was talking to the organisers about that kind of initiative, and they said as well it's great for you to learn a little bit of kart discipline during those days as well. You know, how to have a bit of kart control, how to approach corners. So as well as getting a good experience of driving outdoors, you actually will learn a little bit about how to be quick or just how to drive a kart well.
Yeah, and the other thing that Nicole's mentioned there is absolutely right. Most of these categories, whether it's the Discover Your Drive or BIKC or Club 100, Global Karting League or DRS, all of them normally have like coaching, so that you can learn, as Nicole said, like how to brake properly, accelerate properly, overtake cleanly, and they're really, really strict on contact as well. Like you do, it really gets drilled into you how important it is to make sure that you're driving within the rules, and just give you an overview, as Nicole said, of kind of what to expect a little bit later on as you progress through it. And I think certainly all of the providers in the outdoor karting that you can see there, where you can start from 8 years old, you can stay in there. And I know, like, some of the people that John Viger has racing for him have raced in the championship for like years and years and years, because he's constantly evolving, and they're really, really keen to get more girls involved in the sport. I think Global Karting League actually has a higher number of females, perhaps than the petrol alternatives. But as we said, best to go out and just try them and just see which one suits you. So after you've kind of competed in those outdoor arrive and drive events, the next kind of step up from that is to go and race at your, I guess what we call it, like, club racing. So your local kart club, which is recognised by Motorsport UK, and that means normally that you'll own your own equipment. So what Nicole was saying there is, up until that point, you haven't had to consider how get any equipment to the track, and like preparing it or whatever. But one of the biggest things to consider when you move from this kind of outdoor type arrive and drive stuff is the time. So when you go for a Club 100 or a DRS or BIKC or Discover Your Drive, then you'll be booked in for a time at 7:30 on a Monday night or whatever it might be, and you'll be finished by 9 o'clock. 8 to 8:30, you probably drive for about 25 minutes, half an hour. When you move to outdoor club racing, then the biggest thing, after the kind of maybe having to get equipment and think about how you're going to get it there, is the time. So normally for those events, you'd start on a Saturday for practice, and you'd probably be at the track for about 8 o'clock in the morning. You'll probably finish at about 5 o'clock at night, and then you're going to do it all again on the Sunday when you're racing. So it's a huge commitment in terms of time, and I always say that that's really, really important not to overestimate. Even if you're renting equipment, which is what a lot of people do now from a team, because they might not have a garage, or they might not have a van to transport the stuff around. So you can go to a Motorsport UK recognized team, like one of the big teams, or there's lots and lots of teams that are racing in our events. Just make sure they've got an entrance license, and that if they've got an entrance license, it means that they've had all the adequate checks and they've got insurances and stuff, and you can rent equipment from those. But my personal tip would be, for that particular section, when you move out, just consider how much time it takes, because that's the kind of thing that the families, certainly, and parents have to consider. Is like, well, I might have two other kids, and one might be doing horses and one might be doing swimming, and so it's a huge commitment. But really, this area here in club racing is hugely important to the development of the driver, because we're very fortunate in the UK to have a massively competitive club racing scene, and there's club racing going on every weekend. I think the only weekend there's no racing going on is literally the weekend of Christmas, maybe the weekend after Christmas. Other than that, there's always an event on. It's mega competitive. It's organised and run by Motorsport UK clubs, and I think, Nicola, I would recommend at least a year of this kind of racing before you'd even consider moving into another championship or racing at another club. Maybe you race at two clubs. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things that go into deciding whether club racing is for you or not. I think before you make the move, maybe from your outdoor, first step karting or indoor karting, is visit a few of your local club championships a couple of times over some of their race weekends, have a watch of the racing, talk to some teams, have a stroll around the paddock, try and work out if it's for you or not before you make that commitment, maybe to buy a kart or to run with a team for a weekend. And like Dan said, I definitely do at least a year in club racing, and I would 100% be saying as well, you need to have raced at a few different tracks before you make the next step to your national level karting, because I think racing at one track you might get really quick and really competitive, but lots of tracks have different driving styles, and I think touring different circuits will teach you a lot before you make that next step up. So I definitely have a go at that. And of course, as well, you get different level of club racing. So down in the south, where I kind of grew up and first started racing, it was never as competitive as your Midlands area racing. So we used to quite often, every couple of months, take a trip to Wilton Mill or PFI just to mix it with some different drivers that you wouldn't typically race. So I think that's quite an important thing to do as well if you're going to race in a club championship. But they're great places to start. And as well, that you find track to track, there's great communities there. You get to know people that run the circuits and make lots of friends. So it's not just competitive, it's really good fun as well.
Yeah, Nicole, and I think as well, you meet loads of different people, don't you, when you're racing at club level, and also the indoor stuff as well. You meet loads of people from loads of different backgrounds and different people that you probably wouldn't normally meet. Certainly when you go club racing, because there's a real mixture of ages of people as well, and we are definitely seeing more females racing, certainly at club level, and we really hope to see that continue through all of these phases, and then ultimately, I suppose, ending up hopefully in the British Kart Championships with us.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as I've come through the sport now, you see so many great initiatives for females as well, which is really helping to grow the involvement. So I think if some of you girls are having a look at getting into some club stuff, when you're walking around the paddock, don't be scared to talk to the other girls that are racing, ask them how they got into it, and just make some friends. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So Nicole, in terms of like club racing, for the people on the call, what would you say is like the best thing to do? I'd always say, a bit like you did, just go to the track and see if there's a local trader there or a team that you go and ask questions. And I'd always say, I don't know what your thoughts are, but always steer clear of like auction sites and stuff if you're going to buy something to start with.
Yes. I think if you're going to start thinking about buying your own kit, everything that you buy should be first hand from the manufacturer or from a shop, because you just want to guarantee that safety, especially when it comes to the kit that the driver wears. You never want to buy a second hand suit or helmet, anything like that. Buy everything properly just so you know you're going to be safe. As for carts, you can buy them off of the teams, and if you're buying off of a big team, they are trustworthy, and I would go with that. But like Dan said, I'd maybe steer away from some of the auction sites just so you're getting good quality stuff for your money. I think before you commit to that, though, like I said, visit a couple of events, do some watching just to double check that it's definitely for you. And then I'd jump into that. I'd also, for your first couple of months of club racing, maybe steer clear of some of the bigger teams. I think doing it as a privateer and just kind of learning about the sport is great. That's what I did for my first couple of years. It was just me and my dad. And then we moved to a team setup just so we could, get a lot of enjoyment out of it, learn a lot how I like to race, helps you learn about the kart as well. I know my dad learned a lot in the first couple of years that I raced. So I think doing it as a privateer is definitely accessible. and just kind of work out what your budget is. I think
Yeah.
karting is really accessible for everybody, but do just consider what you want to do budget wise and what you think would work best for you.
Yeah, and we've actually had a question come in regarding classes, which is a bit like we were alluding to about what class should I race in, what class can I race in. So I'll read the question out. The regulation changes last year that removed the old Minimax class on a junior chassis in favour of the smaller Cadet 950 has created a loophole for drivers of a certain size and weight to be at distinct racing disadvantages. 10 or 11-year-olds cannot compete evenly because they're either too tall or too heavy, or both to drive a 950 chassis. I mention this because it predominantly affects girls more than boys, due to girls growing and maturing faster in general. With the pool of female drivers already less than 5%, this regulation change has had a profound effect on the female talent pool. What are your thoughts on this? Well, thank you for the question, first of all. And yeah, we did make some changes to the class structure last year, and they were very, very carefully considered. One of the reasons that we did that was one of the things you alluded to, I think, in the question, was that we had. I'm sure, Nicole, I'm not sure if you raced in Minimax, but it was a really good class, but we had like these tiny little drivers racing these great big cars.
Yeah.
And that created a headache in many ways, because some of the drivers were too light, so they couldn't race in the class, but they were too old for the cadet class. And Minimax definitely was was a really fantastic class, but the feedback that we had was that they wanted us to mirror more of the global classes and the regulations, which was the direction that the class stakeholders wanted to go in. But we completely understand and acknowledge that for sure that there's some people that have been caught in the net, if you like. And I know that some championships, like Darren Beaver's championship, has like a junior primo class, and I think also there's Bayford Meadows have these classes. And it's not something that we're not ignoring, but because we made so many changes last year, but we need to carefully consider any more changes at the moment to the class structure. And at the moment, the mini class is proving very successful, but we do completely acknowledge that it doesn't suit everybody, and that if there are 10 or 11-year-olds that you've alluded to that can't race competitively, maybe because if they've matured at a different rate, then of course that's something that we have to consider. But what we can't do is allow people to move up class early. The only time that we do permit that, or it's considered, is that you could race junior in the year of your 12th birthday if you're racing internationally, because it would seem silly that you'd have to have a kart to race in Europe internationally, where the rules are slightly different. And then you would have to come back and buy a small car here. But I think it's a good question. And as I say, when we make these changes, we completely acknowledge that it's not gonna suit everybody, but it by no means was it any sort of method for us to try and disadvantage people that were 10 or 11 years old. And likewise, at the other end of it, we had a lot of 10, 11-year-olds saying, well, we don't want to go and race against the 15-year-olds or 16-year-olds, as it was in, or 15-year-olds in Mini. Yeah, it's something that we do look at and that we do review. But at the moment, there's no plans to change that, not for 2025 anyway. So we move on to the British Kart Championships at the top of the global path of the karting pathway in the UK. So the Wira Tools British Kart Championship, we have around 500 drivers that are competing in it, and it is very much one of the most competitive kart championships in the world, which we're all immensely proud of, and the events are always very well subscribed, but they are really, really competitive. So if you've just started your your karting pathway journey, realistically, you're probably looking at a minimum of 4 years to get to that point to race in the British Championship and to be competitive and most important thing to enjoy it, because that's it's possible to go through these sections really quickly and move through the gears and get your license, and you could probably be racing in the British Championship within a year. But how enjoyable that would be, I'm not sure. It would certainly be a learning curve for you. And that's certainly something to consider when you're speaking to teams or to people that perhaps are looking to assist you. That to just, you're a long time in karting, and one thing that hopefully Nicole will agree with me, you can't really rush it. Like there's going to be times where it's good and the times where it's not so good.
I think it's one of those things as well to consider if you are about to make that step from clubman to the British Kart Championship. Try not to expect to conquer the world in your first year of the British Kart Championship. Some of these big names in the sport now that have won that series, if you actually look back in the calendar, they've been in there for 3, 4, 5, 6 years. So it's absolutely fantastic place to learn and grow and be competitive. Don't get me wrong, but I think drivers, you still spend a little bit of time in there before you start to get those top 10s, top 5s, top 3s. But it's great, like Dan said, it's probably one of the most competitive championships in the world. If you are a watcher maybe of the Rotax Grand Finals, which is the equivalent of the World Championships but for the Rotax class, you quite consistently see that the Brits always kind of finishing in those top 10 spots at the end of the weekend. It's a really competitive series, and you notice as well a lot of drivers come from overseas to compete in that. I think this year we've got drivers from Australia, Japan, the UAE, Latvia, Poland. You get lots of people traveling to come and race in that because it's such a good series, both competitive in competitiveness and in organisation. I think that shows as well where the championship's got some really heavy sponsorship from Vera Tools, Demon Tweaks, where it's really attractive for not just drivers but sponsors and all sorts of people. As well as there's great coverage of that championship. So if you did want to have a look at that, you've only got to go onto YouTube and kind of search it up, and all the races are streamed, so you can have a watch of what it's like. It's definitely very exciting. I think you'd probably agree, Dan. Oh, you're just on mute.
All right. So we've got Rosa on the call, who's been waiting patiently, working all of the magic with the slides and the IT. Well done, Rosa.
Yeah, trying to. Thanks, Dan. Hello, everyone. As Nicole introduced me at the start of the call, I'm Discover Your Drive manager for Motorsport UK. So we thought that it would be good for me to come in and just give a really brief overview as to what the F1 Academy Discover Your Drive programme is in partnership with Motorsport UK and Team Sport. And then hopefully, if you are aged 8 to 12 yourself, or you have a daughter or a cousin or someone that you think might want to be involved in the programme, you can go and tell them about how fantastic it is. So the F1 Academy Discover Your Drive Karting UK programme was a pilot last year, so it was rolled out in really small form across the country, and then this year we've gone for a larger scale rollout. It's for girls aged 8 to 12 years who need no previous karting experience to be involved in the programme, and it's really about giving girls that first positive experience of karting. I think it probably can be quite a daunting space to step into if you're new to the sport. So what we've tried to do is create this programme to allow girls to come and experience it together, similar age, similar ability, with the hope that some of those girls will be inspired and want to carry on karting and progress along that pathway that Nicole and Dan have just spoken through so well. So the first step of the Discover Your Drive programme is to come along to one of the Discover Your Drive days, which are held periodically throughout the year. The next ones we've got running are in October across 10 team sport locations across the country. So there should hopefully be one local to you, whether you're based in Scotland or Brighton. They're all up and down the country. So I would say log on to the F1 Academy website, and if you click on the Discover Your Drive section, you'll be able to find a link to all the events that we've got and the booking links, so you can book through their website to come and join us on those days if you want to. The people and the girls that come through those Discover Your Drive days then would attend the Race Academy, and then from there we would encourage them to carry on karting, and the aim of the whole programme is to get them to start to compete in the British Indoor Karting Championships. We're hoping this year that we will see another increase off the back of last year in the female participation in the British Indoor Karting Championships. We've got around 40 to 50 competitive girls that have been out qualifying week in, week out at team sport locations, setting their qualifications laps for BIKC this year, which is really fantastic. And we hope that those girls will then progress through the championship rounds and come and join us in Warrington in November for the national finals. But yeah, if you know anyone that might be interested or want to know more, then do look at the Discover Your Drive pages on F1 Academy and find the karting information there. But it is a really great first step of getting more females hopefully into that pathway. The more females that we have in the pathway, the more likely we are to hopefully find some talented ones that can progress through all the way to the top level and be those trailblazers through the sport.
Thanks, Rosa. Yeah, just to add, the Discover Your Drive is doing a fantastic job. I was lucky enough to go to the BIKC last year, where we had the first, like you said, that first sort of cohort of people that had come through and made it, and we're really looking forward to visiting this year again in, I think, in November at Warrington, and looking forward to hopefully seeing some of you there, or indeed some of the future talent that's coming through. So it's a really good initiative, and recommend that you get involved in it if you're not already, especially because they offer that extra coaching as well for people. So I've got some questions that we've got come in. So Rosa, if there's any DYD stuff here, and Nicole, if you're happy, I'll read them out. So, do you have any advice for starting karting when you're older? So, it doesn't say how old they are, but Nicole, what would you say?
I wouldn't even separate it from being older or younger. I just think for everybody, the best way to start is go to your local track, have a watch, see what goes on, see if you think you'd like to jump in. Maybe if you are a bit older, you know, if you're there by yourself, have a chat to a few people, see what their thoughts are. But I just think don't be intimidated as well. Just have a go. Everybody's there to learn and everybody's there to enjoy themselves. So as daunting as it might be, just put yourself out there and just go for it, I'd say.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'd completely agree with that. It's a sport for any age, absolutely. Oh, I've got a good one here. Okay. So what is the biggest challenge engineers face when it comes to optimizing performance as they transition to formula racing? So I'm not sure if that's the engineer, as in the mechanic, and optimizing the kart performance, or if it's about engineering a car and using your experience from karting. But it's certainly something that I think, I don't know what you think, Nicole, is one of the biggest differences when you're karting to when you go car racing. So when you're karting, you kind of have this relationship with the mechanic normally, and like it's kind of like they're your coach as well. But there's not like this synergy, I think you'd say, where you say, oh, okay, I need to work with this person to make me faster. And then as I think you get older through karting, And certainly when you go into formula racing, your engineer is like so important.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think I never made that jump to single seaters, but from conversations I've had with people in the karting paddock who have moved on, they say how much of a good bond you need with your engineer. You almost have to be really good friends so that you can communicate really well their expectations of you as a driver and your expectations as them as an engineer, and it's all about communication. But what I do think is really important and where you can learn a bit of that is in karting. You have your mechanic or your team coach, your driver coach, who you're going to be talking to about the data. And I think that's a really great place to learn how to put things across. In karting, you really, especially as you kind of get to 14, 15, should focus on how you deliver your feedback, how you word things, to get the most out of your racing, and the most out of the coaching that you're being given by a mechanic or a coach. So I think if anybody in here is kind of in that position where they're currently racing, start to think about, oh, well, how could I actually phrase that, or how could I give that feedback to make sure that I'm saying the right thing, to be taught the right thing. It might sound a little bit complicated, but I think learning that in karting is really helpful if you're going to make that move to cars.
That's a really good answer. Rosa, have you got anything to mention about that? Because obviously you do a lot with the coaching stuff with the DYD, Discover Your Drive stuff. Is that something that you'd also recommend?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think that's a really interesting point as to getting to know your coach. And I think it probably can be transferred across other sports as well. If you play a different sport and you're new to karting, the relationship that you have with your coach, whether you play football or netball or cricket, you still, they're all transferable skills that you'll learn in those sports that you can go and take into karting, and how to communicate with your mechanic or whoever it is to understand the best out of them, and be able to get the best out of them and understand how to get into it. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Go on, sorry, Nicole.
Maybe something to add then, in whatever level you're in, if you're trying to take it a little bit more serious, is maybe go away on a weekend off or on an evening and try and learn a little bit more about the mechanics of the kart, because that will teach you things, and then you'll learn how to put things across better, to a mechanic or a coach, so then they can help you. I think that definitely helped me, especially as I kind of moved from junior to senior, was if you learn a bit more about the kart, you'll know what the issues are or what you could be doing differently to be faster.
Excellent. Okay, I think we've got time for one more question, and this one will be definitely for Rosa or Nicole. So it says, when you were little, did you imagine that you may become about becoming an inspiration for some girls in the world of motorsport? Who goes first?
Rosa, do you want to go first?
I would openly say I'm definitely not an inspiration to people in the world of motorsport. But I think probably it's a bit cliche from my perspective, but just doing the role that I do and helping to give girls the opportunity to get into motorsport, I think is really important. And as a female who works in sport, and I've always worked in sport from performance sport through to participation, it's really great to be able to be part of it and offer more opportunities to girls. And I definitely wouldn't say I'm a role model, but hopefully I am giving opportunity to those in the motorsport community, which is a pretty cool thing to be able to say that you can do.
Yeah, I think similarly to Rosa, I don't kind of look at myself as an inspiration to anybody. I'm just Nicole. That's just how you like. I'm just me. I don't think of myself in that sense. I think going through the sport, the main thing for me was always just about being faster and learning more, going there to enjoy myself. I definitely don't think of myself as a role model, but I love to help females in the sport at any level where I can, you know, if I can offer a piece of advice that might help somebody, then I'm always there to do it. But yeah, I wouldn't say I've gone through things and thought of myself like that, but compliment if anybody, that's a big compliment if anybody does look at me and think that. So thank you.
Excellent. Well, no, thank you very much. We've got one final quick question. Maybe I think I can answer this one about what's the best way into Formula Car mechanics. So the best way to do that is probably to look at one of the motorsport colleges that exist when you're a little bit older after your GCSEs. And there's some at Silverstone, there's some at Oxford Brookes, there's like lots and lots of different courses you can go on, and a lot of the race teams then go along and get the young students from there to go along as work experience, and you might be cleaning the awning, you might clean the awning floor. There's a lot of cleaning that goes on, but you will work your way through the ranks, and you can work your way through the Formula Car ranks. There's not at the moment a pathway from kart mechanics to go to car mechanics, but I think one of the Formula 4 teams is looking at setting something up like that, which would be a really good thing.
And also join the Girls on Track community if you're not already. Maybe you're listening to this because you are part of that community, but if you're not, you know, join the Facebook group. Make sure you're there, like talking to other girls that are doing those sorts of roles, understanding what their career path, what did they do for their GCSEs, what did they pick for their A levels, where did they go. They'll have all sorts of tips and tricks and experiences that they can give you, and those are the sorts of role models that you should go out and try and connect with, and being part of that community is a really great place to start with that.
Yeah, no, perfect. Thanks. Thanks, Rosa. So I think we are just about out of time, but I've certainly had a really enjoyable evening. Just to give everybody the chance to give some feedback as well. There'll be a survey, I think, that will go out to all the members. And please, yeah, give us your feedback on that and any further questions, and we'll do our best to go back on those. I hope you found it informative, and sort of give a little bit of context to why we just made those little bit slight adjustments to the guidelines, and hopefully you can understand why we've kind of done that, just so we can try and make that pathway a little bit clearer for people that maybe are looking from the outside. But from my side, big thanks to everybody, and thanks to Nicole, and thanks to Rosa.